They have watered down retouching to push-button solutions. You learn nothing from doing this. Yes, you may turn out some good images, but you'll never learn to think on your feet. It is the same with all AI software. This is intended for people that want to post on Instagram and have what they believe to be interesting images, but don't want to put the work in. But if your goal is to be a creative artist/photographer, stay away. Learning is built on experience. So that was the comment that MVIA236, if that is his real name, left on my last video about how Luminar Neo has become my go-to photo editor. And it got me wondering how much of what we're creating today as photo editors is actually coming from our own internal creativity and how much is being driven by the software itself. Does this guy have a point? Are the new AI tools that are available to us inside of editors such as Luminar Neo actually destroying our creativity, or are they merely there to help facilitate our creative vision? I've got a photo I want to edit, I've got an idea of how I want to process it, so I'm going to use Luminar Neo to do that, so follow along with me. And while I'm doing that, I invite you to ask yourself that question: is the creative vision coming from us as photo editors, or as that guy suggested, is it coming from push button solutions within the software itself? Let's take a look. On a recent trip to the UK, I woke up to this beautiful snowfall and I walked down to the local golf course and I was looking for a tree that I could isolate so I could get just a very pure, very simplistic shot of a single tree. However, no matter where I turned, there was always something else interfering. So in the right hand side of the frame here, there's this element here, but I tried to frame it so that it wasn't actually intersecting this tree over the top of the weeping willow, so that it'd be easier to actually remove that in post-production. And beyond that, my vision for this photo edit is to just really try and enhance this beautiful snowy environment that we have here and really bring attention to the main focus, which is this tree. So first things first, let's dive into the develop raw section. And I'm just going to kick things off with a little bit of smart contrast, not too much. And I also want to just make sure that I'm controlling my highlights. I can clearly see from my histogram here that I don't have a full distribution of tonal range, so I'm going to jump into the curve section here. I'll press J on the keyboard just to make sure that I'm not actually blowing out any highlights, and now I'll just make a subtle adjustment on those just to expand that tonal range further. And if I press / on the keyboard, we can see a little before and after, just a subtle introduction of a bit more contrast. And we'll bring the highlights down just a little further, not all that way, but you can see that we're actually losing detail in the ground if I actually don't take those far enough, and I want to actually see some detail here. Okay, let's move on to bringing attention to the tree itself, and I think a really great tool for us to do that would be the Structure AI tool. Now, although it has AI in the name, which allows it to add structure and clarity intelligently, so if I had a human here, it wouldn't start destroying the skin, for example, it's actually going to come down to my masking that's going to say where I want this applied, because I don't want to bring attention to all of these trees in the background. I actually want to, through the process of my editing, actually knock those guys back. So what I'm going to do is just come in with a brush and just paint very roughly a mask over this tree, so that it's going to say, hey, apply that structure effect only over the tree. So here was our before, here was our after. That's probably a little excessive, so I'll just jump back to the adjustments and just sort of play with this slider from 100 and 0, and somewhere in between is going to be my sweet spot. I'll go for about 40%. Here we go, before and after. Now, one of the things I really love about Luminar Neo is a feature that's often overshadowed by all the AI tools inside of it, and that is that we can use tools multiple times and in different ways, mask it in and really use that to finesse the edit that we're after. So in this case, I've used Structure AI once already to bring attention to the tree I want people to look at, but I'm also going to use it in the negative direction to detract people's attention from the trees in the background. So a double use of the same tool. Let me show you. So I'll come up and I'll close the instance of Structure AI that we've already applied. And now by opening the tool again, I have the ability to come in and this time take the amount slider in the opposite direction. And hopefully you've noticed how it softened up all the trees in the background. If I just toggle the eye tool so we can see the before and the after, you can just see that softening effect. We could boost it further if we wanted to, but I feel like that's enough as it is. Again, I'm going to come in with my brush and just paint the effect over those trees only. And now if I toggle out overall before and after, hopefully you can see that differentiation between the added structure in this tree and the softening of the definition of the trees in the background. Okay, let's close that up. Now we need to get rid of this tree here. Now I could look at using the erase tool, but that does tend to work better on small portions of an image. So for example, if I just erased a little bit there, and hit erase, Luminar does a great job. However, for larger areas like we have here, what I'd prefer to do is just do it quickly with the clone tool. So what we do for cloning, as you know, is click to set a sample point, and then we can click and paint from one area and paint that over another. As you can see, I set my sample point far too close to the edge, so I'll just press Ctrl Z and I'll set a new sample point closer to that central part of the sky, and that's going to allow me to come in and start painting without worrying about introducing an edge that I don't want. Even though the sky looks pretty uniform, the values, the brightness level is actually changing and it's getting brighter towards the center of the frame. And currently I'm not doing the best job of matching that up, but that's okay. And as I move through this photo, I'm just resampling different areas. And I'm not worried about being super precise around these edges here, because I'm hoping that people are going to stay focused around this tree here and not fixate on these little irregularities around the edge here. I could do this with more precision, but it's a relatively quick edit, so I'm not worried about doing that. But one thing I would like to do is just smooth out this transition here where we do have different values, and so the easiest way to do that is just to drop the strength of the clone tool, sample another area, and sort of paint in between that transition point, and that's just going to soften that up. Currently I feel like the trees in the background are still grabbing too much attention from the star of the show, the Weeping Willow. So what I want to do is utilise the Atmosphere AI tool inside of Luminar to see if I can't just push those back a little bit further by introducing some low-lying fog, maybe a little bit of fog at the top of the trees, but I'll have a little play around with that and see what that can do. So I'll close the clone tool, jump into Atmosphere AI, and we're currently on fog, so I'll just grab the amount slider and just start seeing what effect we get. So all the way at 100, you can see that's far too much. But I do like this effect, so perhaps we'll just add a little bit of this fog in subtly. And just like with the Structure AI tool, we can close that down, open Atmosphere AI again, and now we can add a brand new instance. So if we don't want to work with fog anymore, but we might want to put in some layered fog, for example, which has a completely different characteristic and look, we can drop some of that in. We can work with the depth slider. A little too bright for my liking at the moment. Set that somewhere we're happy with. And just as before, we have the option to mask this in. We've got several different mask effects available to us in Neo. We could use a linear mask just to get us started, and from there I can refine it with my brush. Just want it applied in the background on those trees. So I just want to make sure it's not affecting my main star, the tree in the foreground, too much. Here's our before, here's our after. Now, as we start to craft this separation between the tree in the foreground and those in the background, it's really starting to come together for me visually. However, I'd like to take this effect further. Yes, I could carry on working with another instance of Atmosphere AI, but what I'd like to do is actually show you an alternative approach that you can do with the clone tool, which is probably more akin to working traditionally in something like Photoshop. So it's another approach, but it's going to help us just to push those trees back further into the distance and just soften the image, give it more of a kind of dreamlike quality, or at least that's what I'm going for anyway. So I'm going to come down once again to the clone tool, and I'm going to bring the strength down even further, set it quite low, around 20%, that's fine. And now I'm just going to be stealing from the sky and painting that softly over the top of these trees. And every time I release my mouse, I just click and paint once more, and I'm just layering this effect up. And then I can sample again and just even bring this down a little lower, because this area here is quite dark, so I really want to push that back. So we'll sample up here, make sure we've got enough clean white space around me just to knock that back. And any areas where I feel like it's just a little bit too dark, like down here, I'm just going to push those back even further. And now just start softening these trees here. And this was one of the reasons why I wasn't really too worried about the precision of my initial cloning around this area, because I knew I was going to come in and just start to soften these back. And this darker area underneath here, I need to push that back as well. Let's close that down. Okay, let's have a look at our before and our after. We've removed that tree on the right hand side. We've isolated this tree with some added clarity, and we've pushed these back with some kind of faux fog that we've added, a bit more atmosphere. I like where we're sitting at the moment, but I really feel like there's more life in this image that we can squeeze out of it. So let's see what else we can do. We're currently very uniform and simplistic through the sky and the foreground as well, and I'm pretty happy with that. However, what about if we were to add a vignette, just darken those edges just a little bit, and we can bring more attention to the tree. So as always, when I'm working with this tool, I push the amount all the way so that I can clearly see exactly what I'm doing, and any changes that I'm making become clearly visible while that amount is all the way at -100. If you have it set at like -35 and you're trying to change things, it's very hard to see what you're doing. So I'll push that all the way there. Let's set the feather up there, maybe even brighten up the center of the frame with the inner light. And now one of the reasons why I really love Vignette inside of Luminar Neo particularly is I can actually choose the center point for the vignette. We're not just stuck right in the center of the frame. We can say, hey look, this is what we want people looking at, and center it based on our subject. So now I've got the look that I like. What I can do is grab that amount slider and just ease it in just subtly. Let's have a little look. Here's our before, here's our after. It's subtle, but I like it, and it's really going to help our falling snowflakes stand out. What snowflakes are here, you ask? Don't worry, we're going to get to that. But the next thing I'd like to do is just work with our contrast a little bit and just see if we can't improve that. I like what we've achieved over most of the photo there, but it's a little bit too heavy on the left-hand side in those trees in the background, and so I'm just going to erase it a little bit from that area. If you're anything like me, that wonky horizon line has probably been doing your head in right from the start, so let me go in and fix that up. I mean, come on, Anthony, how hard is it to get your horizon line straight? Okay, I'll jump into the crop tool, which is just going to allow me to straighten that up, and that's much better. One thing that I feel is missing is the cool toning that we would associate with a snowy scene like this. So let me just see what I can actually do to fix that. Okay, let's have a little look at our before and our after. It's a subtle shift in tone, but I really like it. It helps to unify the photo and give it that cool feeling that I was after. Okay, let's add some snow. I'm going to come over to the layers section here, and I'm going to click on, probably not what you'd expect, but a night sky. I'm going to come over and click on fill so that we increase the size of this frame, and now we can actually move that so that all we see are the stars. This is going to become my falling snow. So all I will need to do is actually change the blend mode into screen, and there you go, we have some falling snow. But here's the thing, if I come over and hide this layer, you'll notice our original has a lot more contrast, and when I show the layer again, not only have we introduced the snow, but it's also bleached out the rest of the photo. So why is that? So basically any bright or white pixels are being screened, added into the layer underneath, and we see them. Anything that is pure black, we do not see. And anything that falls somewhere in between is being added with that level of intensity. So a kind of mid-grey will be added with kind of 50% intensity. So we currently have not a pure black in the sky, it's pushing into a dark blue. So it does have some level of brightness, and so that is being added to our underlying layer, hence the fact that we're getting a slightly washed out look. And I want to maintain that contrast that we worked hard to introduce in the first place. So what I need to do is turn any of the pixels that are not going to be snow to pure black. So let's do that. And the easiest way to do that is with curves, which exist within the develop tool. Open up curves. And now as I pull that point across that represents pure black, anything that falls beyond that point is just disappearing to pure black. That's achieved what we're after in most of the photo. However, the bottom left-hand corner is still a little bright. So what I can do is specifically talk into that area by doing another adjustment that I'm just going to mask in there. Okay, that's good enough. Now all we need to do is just change our blend mode from normal back into screen. So here's without the snow, and here's with the addition of snow. I feel like we may be a little on the dark side for what I was envisaging, so I'm going to jump into the dramatic slider. Envisaging, that's a hard word to say sometimes. Grab the dramatic slider, and as you guys know, as you pop that up, it accentuates the blacks and whites, as you can see here. We can work with the contrast as well, but I want to keep that quite soft and just leverage the brightening effect. So this was before the dramatic filter, and that's after, just helping to subtly brighten it. I do feel that the vignette is just a little bit heavy, so what I can do is jump back into the edits tab, and that's going to have a history of all of the tools that I've applied to this edit, and I just need to find the vignette, come in and reduce that, and now the rest of the editing stack is updated to reflect that change. So before I give you my thoughts on whether AI photo editing is killing our creativity, let's do my favourite bit of any of my edits, which is our before and after. Here's our before. A relatively nice raw capture of a pretty simple scene. However, I envisaged it to look more like this. So let me know in the comments, what did you think to my push button solution to this photo edit? I don't feel that in any way that AI has impeded my creative vision. On the contrary, I feel that Luminar Neo and other AI photo editing tools are designed to actually enable us, to give us the freedom to reach our creative visions quicker. So for example, Luminar Neo's cutting edge masking AI, which ironically I didn't even use in this example, is designed to actually get us to our end result quicker. I don't know about you, but personally, I don't want to be spending ages in a photo editor cutting out an object so that I can manipulate that in the way that I want. If there's an AI tool that can actually select that object for me and then I can make my adjustments really nice, quickly and simply, I'm all for that. But in no way is that destroying my creative vision. I think anyone who says that AI is doing the work for you or is in some way lessening your final product, they've got it all wrong. Let me know, what do you guys think? Let me know in the comments. Let's have a discussion on this. If you want to check out Luminar Neo yourself and you don't have it yet, I've got a link in the description with a discount code as well. And if you want to learn how Luminar Neo became my default go-to photo editor ahead of the likes of Photoshop, Lightroom, all those other good programs, why don't you go along and click that video there. I'll see you there. And if you haven't subscribed already, you can click that right there. Thanks for watching. I'll see you in that video.